Hey, we back. I'm here talking about some more figures today. It's the video that I've been promising for far too long now. It is the figure video. The figure video. As you can see, I have the camera trained on all the figures over there. Hi, I'm back here. I'm gonna show you guys the figures that I have. We're gonna talk about them. That's about all there is to it, really. I'm gonna tell you what I think of the figures that I have, which ones are my favourites. If there's any interesting stories behind them, I can show them as well. And the other thing that we're going to be doing today is trying to figure out how much I've spent on them, because I actually don't know how much I've spent on my figures in total. I normally don't talk about the costs of the figures in the unboxing videos that I make, but I figured I would talk about that today. If you guys are interested in figures, you can see how much I've spent on them and see if it's worth it for you to do the same. Maybe you want to start collecting figures yourself, or maybe you already do. I also have actually mounted my camera on the stand this time, because as you can see, I've got little LEDs all in my cases, so the lighting is slightly less important than normal. And normally I go for mounting the light on the stand, so that we don't have wobbly lighting. But now we've got no wobbly camera. That being said, I'm going to move the camera a little closer. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. We'll do one detail at a time. You see I have two, and there's also figures over here and more figures over there, and other such things that we will talk about at the end, I guess. But yeah, let's get started, because this is going to be a long video, I'm sure. And we can figure out some stuff together. So let's, like I say, start at the top. Camera goes zoom. So at the top of the cases, I have my Azure figures. You see two there. There is one over on the other side there. But these two, this is Jujutsu and Unicorn. Jujutsu is one of my earlier figures. I got Jujutsu pretty early on. And it's also one of my favourites. I love Jujutsu. The character is great, the figure is great. I'm just very happy with it. Jujutsu cost me, let me check the spreadsheet, £118. I will preface this by saying that all the prices are in pounds because I am British, and they also all include shipping. So that's 118 including shipping. Jujutsu is a 7th scale, so we're starting right off with the scale figures, as is Unicorn, to be fair. Unicorn costing me £107. So they're both pretty similar. They're both cheap 7th scales, basically. And they're both from Azure, and they're very good. Now, I got the Unicorn pretty recently. If you have watched any of my figure videos recently, you'll see that I did a video about Unicorn where I opened her up with a couple of other figures. So there we go. But yeah, Azure figures. Not much more to say about that. Jujutsu, one of my favourites. So we're off to a fantastic start. I generally try and organise these cases so that my favourites are near to the top, but I more strongly prioritise keeping series together, which is why we have both the Azure figures, and we'll get to the Sirius shortly as well. Since Sirius is on the other Detolf, I guess it will actually be later. But yes, Sirius is also there. We'll see Sirius in a bit. Moving on down here, we've got basically Tensura figures, as well as a couple of Konosuba ones. So you can see the Megumin and the Aqua. These are both pop-up parades. You can tell that by the little hexagonal bases. The Megumin and the Aqua both cost me £26, which is a great price for a pop-up parade. They're normally a little bit more expensive than that. And remember, that's including shipping. So that's really good. The Megumin does not hold her staff. She's holding it currently, but if I knocked on that glass strongly enough, she'd probably drop it. No, maybe not. Megumin has a bit of a grip on her staff, but she does tend to drop it. If I picked her up, she would definitely drop the staff, which is kind of sad. Try and squish her hand a little bit. Squish her hand, just to make sure she keeps a hold of it. But yeah, there we go. Her hat also does come off, which is fantastic. Both of these are some of the earlier figures that I got. Once again, most of the ones in this top shelf are some of the earliest ones that I got, aside from this Megumin, which, as you may know, I opened in a video recently. Speaking of the Megumin, we have the Tensura figures. You can see the Shizu in the back right. The Shizu was my favourite figure for a good while. She was only the maybe 3rd figure that I ever got, and she's just fantastic. It's not too hard to see in this shot here, but you see her little sword. I say little sword, it's actually a huge sword with all the flames coming off it. Along here, you can kind of see that along there. my hand is just not pointing at the right thing. But like there, look, sword, the big flames, and it's just huge. That did snap off one time, and I had to glue it back on because it's so bloody heavy. It doesn't take much of a knock to just knock that fiery bit off the sword hilt. But you wouldn't be able to tell. You can't tell. I can't even tell, and I know it's there, so that's good. There is a version of that figure without the mask as well, but I prefer the mask one. Mask one's cool. Then you can just about see the Veldora next to her, the little dragon behind Megumin. And what you can't really see from here is the Rimuru. So let's move the camera around a bit. If we go around the side there, you can see the Rimuru next to Veldora at the back there. I want to get a couple Rimurus really. There's a couple of really nice ones. But this is the first and only one that I have at the moment. I should also mention the picture in the back. You can see the drawing in the back. That's not an anime character. That's actually just one of my lecturers at uni. Someone drew that and then sold it, and I bought it for like £5. So that's fantastic. It was a good meme. It was a good meme. But yeah, so there we go. That's Kirk in the back there, and he overlooks the anime figures. Speaking of money, let's get the prices for the other figures on that shelf. So we have the Milim at £46. The Rimuru was £30. The Shizu was £17. And the Veldora was £13. So you can see in general this is a pretty cheap shelf. All of these are prize figures. Of course, pop-up parades, I've said many times before, are basically the top end of prize figures, but actually the Milim was more expensive than them, so hey, there you go. Also, the Shizu there is the first figure that we've talked about so far today that I bought from my good old eBay seller, who I'm going to be mentioning a lot of times today, because half my figures came from this guy, especially the early on figures. Now, of course, the Milim I got recently. If you want to know more about where I got that from, have a look at the video that I did the unboxing of. Megumin Aqua, Rimuru, and Veldora, I believe I bought off people on Discord. So that's funny. It's been a long time since I bought any figures off someone on Discord, but it did used to happen a fair few times. And then we do have the Shizu, who I bought off the eBay guy. Shizu being £17 is one of the most expensive ones that I got from him, which is impressive because it means all the other ones were cheaper, and oh boy, were some of them cheap. Now, like I said, I generally try and keep my favourite figures at the top of these shelves, and these ones are all basically here because of Shizu. Shizu, like I said before, was my favourite figure, full stop, is still one of my favourites, which, despite the fact that it's a prize figure, is really impressive, actually, because I've got quite a few scales here, some really fancy ones, and Shizu is still one of my favourites, so that's why they're all at the top. But honestly, a lot of them are kind of clinging onto Shizu there, because some of them could definitely go down a couple shelves. Not that I dislike any of them, absolutely, I like all the figures that I own, that's why I own them. But Shizu is one of the best, and the others on that shelf are kind of just there because they're from the same anime. Of course, Megumin and Aqua are there from Konosuba. There is a part of this that's where they fit, because as you'll come to realize, these shelves are very full. I've heard people saying that you can fit 2 or 3 figures on each Detolf shelf, and you'll notice that there's 6 there, and that number is not going down. I think this is the shelf with the least figures on it, maybe. Maybe not. Anyway, we'll see the other shelves. Let's move the camera down a bit, and I can carry on whittering about nothing while we do it. Because the point is, we have below them a bunch of REMs, and you'll notice this is more than 6 figures. This is the REM shelf. I would have a ReZero shelf, but I don't really have any other ReZero characters anyway. I mean, technically, we do have our Ram here, and I actually do have another RAM that we'll get to nearer the end of the video, but obviously it doesn't fit in this shelf. In fact, technically there's 2 RAMs in here, because we also have this tiny RAM over here, the Sleepy Rem and Ram, who are just adorable. I've moved it a bit closer so you can see them a bit better. There's 2 there. The small ones are kind of difficult to see, I guess. They are really small. They would fit in the palm of my hand. In fact, look, for scale, here is my hand. They are very small. Anyway, yeah, the REM shelf. So that back right REM there with the kind of wizard-looking outfit, I guess, she is actually the first figure that I got. I mentioned Shizu was one of the first. and in fact a lot of the ones we've talked about today are some of the first. Later on we'll get to figures that I got more recently, I suppose, but that Rem there is the first figure. When I naturally, like a lot of figure collectors, I started off thinking, I'll just buy the one figure, that'll do me. Rem's one of my favourite characters. The figure looks really nice. It's a prize figure, it was pretty cheap. We'll get up the costs in a second. And I thought, yeah, this will be good. I'll put this on my desk somewhere and I can just have a Rem. And as you can see, it did not end there. But yes, that was the first figure that I bought. Unfortunately, I think the grass that she's standing on has discoloured a little because I used to have her in sunlight. The only figure that has actually been kept in sunlight because it was the first one that I got, and I didn't know you weren't meant to do that when I first got them. The other ones are all good in terms of sunlight. I had an awful time with that. I was actually talking about that on Discord earlier. I had a big bay window. It was impossible to keep them out in the sunlight, but I did my best, and I think they're all good, but the grass on that Rem is maybe a little bit discoloured. I don't think you'd be able to tell on the video, even if I got her out of the box, so I'm not going to, but it's honestly not really noticeable. It still looks very much green, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, and all of these Rems, they're all prize figures, so they're all pretty cheap. And I said before that I got a lot of my figures from the eBay guy, so let's talk about that. The one in the chair came from the eBay guy. The one with the sunglasses in the middle came from the eBay guy. The one with the hat on the left came from the eBay guy. And the one that you can't really see, let's shift the camera around a bit. It's a bit wobbly because I'm holding it up, but the one with the ball and the chain back there, in the back left, also came from the eBay guy. So there you go, that's a bunch of eBay guy figures, which is fantastic. And so they'll be very cheap, but actually all of these were pretty cheap. The tiny ones at the front, the Sleepy Rem and Ram, are actually more expensive than some of the eBay guy figures, just because they're kind of rare. They're little trading things, something like that. I'm not really sure, but it took me a while to find them. If you are trying to find something like that, would recommend Mandarake, because this is the exact sort of thing they have. Just random stuff that is kind of hard to find, little trading things you wouldn't really expect another store to have because they're kind of old at this point, and then Mandarake just has them, which is fantastic. So there you go. And then we've got the Rem and Ram in the little hoodies there. They're a bit more recent than the others. They also cost a little bit more, so that makes sense. Buy more expensive figures recently, God. I might have even done a video including them, I can't remember. To be honest, you're welcome to have a look. They're not that recent though. But let's bring up the prices, shall we? So, starting with the ball and chain Rem in the back left, she was £14. Then we've got the wizard Rem in the back right, who was £20. The sleepy Rem and Ram at the front were £8 each. The Rem in the chair was £13. The Rem and Ram in the hoodies were £63 combined. The Rem with the hat was £7. And the Rem with the glasses was also £7. So yeah, there you go, that's all of those. There's a lot of Rems. Like I say, she is one of my favourite characters. If I was to tell you my favourite 3 characters, it would be Now, Kurisu and Rem. There is exactly only one Now figure, and to be honest, there aren't that many Kurisu ones either, so naturally I had to go with a lot of Rem figures, because, oh boy, there's a lot of Rem figures, and since there's a lot of cheap Rem figures, I can quite easily buy a whole shelf of Rems like that, and to be honest, the whole lot of it combined probably cost less than 100 quid, which is pretty good, all things considered. Especially since the ones in the hoodie cost 63 together. The rest of them cost basically nothing. It's wonderful and I love it. I shall continue buying more Rems. Well, maybe. We'll see. But on to the next shelf. So we meet the Sword Art Online figures. I have quite a lot of those. It turns out when a show is extremely popular, it gets a lot of figures. And this applies to Rem and it applies to Sword Art Online. So there are actually 2 Sword Art Online shelves, and even then they don't all fit on the shelves. This is the first one. The other shelf is in the other DTOF, so we'll get to that nearer to the end. But as you can see, we have an Asuna, a Kirito, and 3 Alices in this one. So the Asuna and the Kirito, I've heard before that they look like they go together, which is pretty cool. They actually don't. There is a Kirito that goes with the Asuna. If you can't tell from there, it's this Asuna with a white base. I guess I'll try and move the camera a bit. Not a great view, I'll put it back, don't worry. But yeah, you see the Asuna there with the white base. It's actually quite tall, and she's got these little blue thingies going around her, which is pretty nice. It's some nice effects, and given that she's a prize figure, I'm pretty happy with that. You don't normally get effects like that on a prize figure. But the point is, there is a Kirito that also has a base like that, and has little blue things going around him. And it's not the one that I have, so they don't go together. I just like this Kirito better, so I got these two. As for the Alices, I mentioned before about how Megumin doesn't hold her staff. Well, Alice really doesn't hold her sword. You can see, in fact, she isn't holding it. It's on her base. It's down here. There, you can just about see it along the bottom there. That is her sword. She is not holding it. She does not hold it. She never holds it. This might just be my figure. Maybe if you buy it, she will hold it. But she just doesn't hold it for me. It just doesn't work. It'll fall out at the smallest thing. I joked about Megumin dropping her staff by knocking on the glass. With Alice, it's not a joke. She would drop it if you knocked on the glass. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, then I've also got the Sleepy Alice there. She doesn't really fit there. She's kind of on top of the other Alice and the other Alice's base. She didn't used to be there. I moved her because there wasn't enough space anywhere else. I need another Detolf. But yeah, and then we also have small Alice with her little basket. It's very cute. I wanted to get a small Alice and a big Alice. Realistically, I ended up getting 3 big Alices. As you can see, there's 2 here and there's 1 yet to come. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll get rid of the Alice that can't even hold a sword at some point. But also, it's nice to have an Alice in her armor. That's cool. I don't really want to get rid of them. Still good. Just need to free up a bit of space. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. But they're good figures. I like them. All of these were very cheap. They're all prize figures, like I say. And I think all of them except for the Sleeping Alice came from the eBay guy. I think so. So once again, eBay guy coming through big. Yeah, let's pull up the prices. So the Kirito cost £15. The Asuna cost £16. Just had to one-up him. The Alice in her armour cost £10. The Sleeping Alice cost £30. Honestly, I feel like that was a bit of a rip-off. She's not worth £30. Oh well. But that's what I get for not buying from the eBay guy, huh? And the small Alice cost £8. Remember that all of these prices do include shipping, so getting figures for £7 or £8 is huge, not gonna lie. If you're interested, the total so far is almost £600. I said at the start, I really don't know how much all of this cost. I'm interested to know as much as you are. Although, to be honest, I probably put it in the title. You guys probably know before me. But anyway, most of that was the 2 Azure lanes on the top, which is kind of funny. Anyway, moving on, we still have one more shelf. I don't really know how I'm going to show this, because the camera stand does not go any lower, really. I might have to take the camera off. Okay, so sorry about the shaky camera on this one. I do have to hold it, and you can see all my wiry mess. There's the very bottom shelf down here in the corner, and this is where we have mostly the No Game No Life stuff. So we have the Steph in the back, who's a scale figure. The Jibril in the middle, who is also a scale figure, despite her tiny little size. And then all the others are prize figures. There's also just a couple of random figures in here, as you can see. Now, the Shui is, I said earlier, if you're keeping track, that one Rem was my first figure, and that one Shizu was my third figure. There's the Shui in the middle. She was my second figure. So that's great. She's a pop-up parade, you can tell, again, by the hexagonal base. We haven't had too many pop-up parades, actually, so far. I do own quite a few of them, but they're kind of scattered throughout my collection, so we'll come across most of them later. But yeah, there's the Shui. She is one of my favourite figures, not quite as good as the Shizu, in my opinion. So then you ask, why is she down at the bottom? Do you not like the other figures down here? Well, to be fair, the main reason is because the Steph in the back, who is not wearing a whole lot of clothes, was probably the first lewd figure that I got, and at the time I figured I might as well protect a little bit of my reputation and hide them down at the bottom. Didn't work out, because then I went and bought more, but hey, whatever. Steph is down here. Shui is down here. They don't really fit anywhere else, so they'll stay down here. Jibril, of course, also not wearing a whole lot. Jibril is a 12th scale, which is tiny, and yet also cost, I think, around 50 quid. We'll get the exact prices in a bit. But I feel like that's a bit ridiculous for a 12th scale, but hey, whatever. It's one of my smallest figures. Aside from these tiny things down here, who came with the Steph, there's a whole little collection of No Game No Life figures which come with little ones of those, and I'd like to get some more at some point. I don't think I'll get all of them, but the Shiro that comes as that part of the collection has a bunch of them. She comes with a mini Sora and a mini Steph, and someone else as well, I think. Can't remember. I'd really like to get her. That'd be really cool, but I haven't got around to it yet, so that might happen at some point. For now, I just have those two mini ones down there. So there you go. As for the non-No Game No Life figures, we have over here, we've got the Mai Sakurajima in the back. You can just about see her. We have these other two figures that I can't remember the name of. And this is why they're at the bottom. Now, you can harass me all you like for forgetting the name of the main character from Demon Slayer, but I will now go and check. Alright, I have now officially checked. We have Tanjiro and Hikari. Tanjiro, obviously, from Demon Slayer. You guys all know that, even if I forgot. Hikari from Demi-chan, which is a much smaller anime. She is not the main character, but potentially you could say the main girl. And I think she's the only character from the show with a figure. Now, as for what you're all waiting to hear about, which of these came from the eBay guy? It was the Hikari and the Mai. Both of them came from the eBay guy. The other ones didn't. I don't think the eBay guy sells pop-up parades, and he certainly doesn't sell scale figures, even if they're 12th scale. You could guess that the Tanjiro came from the eBay guy, but he did not. He's a very recent figure that I got for free, I believe, actually, as part of a bigger deal. So, if you do want to know about the Tanjiro, he was in a pretty recent video about the figures, so you can go find out about that. But anyway, as for the prices on the rest of them, as you know, the Tanjiro was free, but we have the Shui costing £47, which is a little expensive for a pop-up parade, but it's not unreasonable. Again, she was the second figure that I ever got, so I didn't really know what stuff was worth back then. Then the Hikari, being an eBay seller figure, for £8. We've got the Mai Sakurajima for £21, a bit more of an expensive one from him. Then for the Jibril we have 53, and for the Stephanie we have 150. And of course that comes with the two little things. That's that shelf. Let's move on before we get demonetized for showing Steph on the screen for too long. So moving all the way back up to the top of now the second D12, which is actually a little higher up, so I've had to tilt the camera back a bit, so it may be a little wobbly after all that. But here we have a Megumin and a Sirius. Now, I did promise another Azure Lane figure, and there is the Sirius up at the top, of course, with the other two Azure Lane ones, if you can remember, back to the start of the video. And the Sirius is one that we got very recently. She's, I think, the most recent figure that I got, so if you check my most recent figure video, you'll probably see her there. And then we have the Megumin as well, which is just nice. I guess she's pretty close to the other Konosuba ones. Again, if you can remember back to the start, the Megu and Aqua pop-up parades that I had are on the top of the other D12 over there. So she's pretty close to them. It's fair. Also, all those fancy effects. We've got the Sirius with all of her Azure Lane stuff. And the Megumin with her explosion magic, which is very cool. I believe that's a scene from the OP. Now, both of these are scale figures. The Megumin is a 7th scale, who cost me £121. The Sirius is an 8th scale, which is why she's a little bit smaller, although she is just a larger character, I suppose, who cost me £140. So yeah, it turns out when you buy scale figures, they're a little bit more expensive. Both of these are really nice though, like I said, about the special effects. I'm a big fan of figures that have special effects. You might notice as well, most of these figures have reasonably interesting poses. I have a few that are just kind of standing there, but for the most part they're doing interesting poses. And so, as with a lot of them, you can see here we've got some poles to hold them up if you look closely in the back. I have said before that I'm not a huge fan of the poles, but see, this is the kind of poles that I'm okay with. They're very small, they're very thin, you know. They're sturdy because they're made of metal, but they're small and thin, and they're at the back. You can't really see them too well. Now, my favourite figure that has a pose like this is, going back a bit, the Yudichi. If you can remember the Yudichi over here, do you see a pole? No, there's no pole. She's pulling that pose off without a pole, which is just outstanding. The way that this is done is the fact that her base is huge. If I just move the camera up, this is maybe something I should have shown at the start of the video, but we're talking about poles now, so I'll do it now. Do you see how big that base is? It is gigantic, which is why these Azure figures go on the top, because Unicorns is also pretty big, although she has a big-ass pole that I don't like. But yeah, these two also have some pretty big bases here. They just have, you know, poles. So anyway, that's those two. Great figures. Big fan. Some of my favourites, I guess. Megumin certainly is. The Sirius, she's not my favourite Azure character. She certainly can't match up to Yudichi. But it's still a very nice figure, naturally. That's why I bought it. Moving on here to the first shelf in the second detolf, we have mostly the Steins stuff. Of course, there's some other stuff in here, as with all of the shelves. It really just needs to be cramped, unfortunately. We have Kurisu there sitting on the stand of Suzuha. Yeah, this is just kind of how it goes. I think the Suzuha might be the first scale figure that I got. Close to it anyway, that Suzuha being an 8th scale, and that really is, once again, one of my favourite figures. I've said this quite a few times before. At the end of the day, I just really like all of these figures. But, like, when I say it, I would say, like, the figure is probably top 5, if not top 10 figures that I own. Suzuha has got to be up there, and that is actually mostly because of the bike. The bike is just fantastic. You would not believe how good that bike is. It just impresses me so much how much detail is put into a figure that at the end of the day is sitting on a shelf, right? And of course, the point of the figure is meant to be the Suzuha, who, mind, looks great. I like the Suzuha, she looks amazing. But the bike, like, it works. The wheels rotate, the handlebars rotate and rotate the wheels, the pedals rotate. Everything about this bike is just fantastic. I'm not kidding when I say the instructions for the figure, you know, figures always come with instructions, even though they're pointless. The instructions had something on that said the brakes don't work. They actually wrote that on the instructions, which I find hilarious, because yes, unfortunately, the brakes don't work. But it's just an outstanding figure. I really love it. Now, this is an excellent example of me not liking stands. There is a stand that is used to hold up that bike, and do you see it? No. That's actually not because they did a good job of hiding it, it's because I don't use it. The bike can hold itself up, and I dislike stands, so despite the fact that I believe it's a clear stand, like it's see-through, but you can still see it, so I just don't use it. She stands up by herself, which works wonderfully. Anyway, let's talk about some of the other figures here. The only two Nandroids I own, these little two Kurisus. There is only a couple of Nandroids that I want to buy at all. Those two Kurisus are one of them. I wouldn't mind getting a Fubuki from Hololive. The Fubuki Nandroid looks pretty nice. I also want a Kumo from Soma Spider So What. It's another nice Nandroid. And the Kurisu on the right there is from Penguin Parade, who do a little line of Nandroids that all sit like that, and they're all adorable. And the Yui from Angel Beats. I would totally get the other Penguin Parade, the one of her. So that'd be nice, but that is all the Nandroids that I ever would buy. I'm not a huge fan of Nandroids, and these are the only two that I have. There is also, of course, the Kurisu in the back left. She's a 7th scale. And the interesting story with her is that she was the only figure that I've been given by someone else. So my brother got me that Kurisu for my birthday when I started collecting figures. It is wonderful. I love it. It is, again, one of my favourite figures. Admittedly, I'm biased towards Kurisu, so when I say it's one of my favourite figures, what I really mean there is that Kurisu is one of my favourite characters, because she is, I said earlier, Kurisu is my second favourite character. At the end of the day, the figure isn't doing much. She is just kind of standing there. I mean, she's doing her cool pose, and her lab coat is going back. I love the pose. It's great. It fits her character. It's certainly good enough that I'm very happy with the figure. It's just not insane like the Yudichi that we just talked about or anything like that. It also doesn't have a bike, you know, so like there's certainly more detailed figures here, but I am very much biased towards Kurisu, and I love that figure. It's one of the oldest ones that I've had, because like I say, I got that for my birthday the year I started buying figures, so I'd only been figure collecting for maybe about 3 months at the time that I got that Kurisu. Yeah, the Kurisu and the Suzuha, they're both two of the first scales that I got. I guess you could say that my figure collection started off with the characters that I like the most, which makes a lot of sense, you know? I got them, got Steins Gate stuff, got the Shui and the Shizu. It's all good stuff. Anyway, who have we not talked about? Ah, yes, the elephant in the room, Mia. Now, if you know anything about figure collecting, you may know about this Mia, because this Mia is a pretty well-known figure. And she's well-known not for the right reasons. She's well-known for being ludicrously expensive, which is not great, because here she is sitting in front of me, so you wonder, how much did you spend on that Mia? Yeah, it was quite a lot. We'll get to the prices in a minute, but yes, the Mia there is definitely, by far, the most expensive figure in my collection, being reasonably low profile at the back there. I was going to tell you what scale she was, but I checked. She's not even a scale figure, which just makes it worse. She is priced like a scale figure, though. Even originally, her price was around what a scale figure went for. I think it was around £120, something like that. But her aftermarket price has just exploded. And if you aren't sure about why this is, it is because the anime, Monster Musume, is very popular in the West, but not very popular in Japan. And Japan is where they make the figures. So these Japanese people go, oh, this isn't a very popular anime. We'll just make one figure of the main girl and we won't make too many copies. So Mia is the only figure from Monster Musume that they've made. And yeah, there weren't too many of them. And then the West comes along and tries to buy them all, and there aren't any to buy, which is why it costs a lot of money. I believe if you want to buy it new, even now, it's something in the realms of £600, and it used to be more. Now, I got a great deal on the Mia. As I do with all my figures, I try to buy them at a low price. But if we're talking price, yeah, it was £479, which is much cheaper than the 600 that I just mentioned, but also that's expensive. It really is. I think it is easily double the price of any of the other figures that I have, and at the same time, she is just kind of small at the back there, low profile, you know, which is sad. Admittedly, this is mostly just because the shelves are too cluttered. Naturally, she is on the top shelf, and I said before, my favourite figures do go on the top shelves if they can. So she is up there. I really like the figure. I really like the character. So I'm very happy with it. But yes, it cost quite a lot of money. Also, interesting fact about the Mia, it is a cast-off. This is something that everyone talks about, meaning that basically you can take her clothes off. Now this is a forced cast-off, which means you would have to cut them off. You will not get them back on if you cut them off. But the point being, she has details underneath, right? And the clothes were cast separately, so they are not part of the figure. If you do take them off, she is painted underneath, right? So that's the point. I am certainly not going to be doing that with my one. If nothing else, it certainly lowers the value. But also, I'm not interested in having cast-off Mia. I like her with her clothes on, thank you very much. But I thought I'd mention it. This is one of the reasons why she is very expensive, because there are people who do cut the clothes off, and now suddenly supply is even lower than it was before. So there you go, the Mia. Like, if I spend as much money on her, I might as well talk about her for a long time as well. So there we go, I've now talked about Mia for a long time. It's probably the most interesting shelf that we've talked about so far. Not necessarily because it has the most figures or the best figures or anything, but just because there's stuff to say about all of them. I really have some good praise for the figures here. Like I say, the Suzuha is way better than it should be. And The other ones are all fantastic as well. I do love all the figures here. They're on the top shelf for a reason. Let us quickly go through the prices, because we might as well. I've already talked about the Mia. So starting with the Kizuna, she was £78. Then the Uzaki was 93. Then we have the Penguin Parade Kurisu, which is the one on the right, who cost me £69, which is nice. Also, yeah, just casual Nandroid there costing more than half my figures. It's a bit ridiculous, but Penguin Parades are hard to find, I guess. The other Kurisu Nandroid costs £43. The Suzuha costs £196, so that is actually also one of my most expensive figures. It's kind of dwarfed by the fact that the Mia exists, but yeah, she was very expensive. For a while, she was my most expensive figure. In fact, for a long while, she was. Because I didn't have anything above £200, and of course the Suzuha there is almost there, and meanwhile she was one of the first scale figures that I got. And then the Kurisu, I believe, was £184. Now, of course, I don't have the exact figure for this because I got it for my birthday, but I think I took that value for what my brother said he bought it at, or the price that it was selling at the site that he bought it from, or something. I'm not sure where I got the value on this one, but we're going to go with it, £184. So that sure was the most expensive shelf so far. I think the combined cost of that was about £1,000, which is a bit ridiculous. But calm yourselves, because we're going down to the cheap end again with the next shelf. Just about seeing Raftalia off to the side there. We'll get to her later. So on this shelf we have some My Hero Academia stuff and some RWBY stuff. So at the front we have RWBY Rose and Yang and we've got Ochiko at the back. Yang and Ochiko both being two more pop-up parades. And then we have some My Hero Academia stuff, as I said, the two Ochikos and Todoroki. Todoroki is a very recent one. I don't know if he was in the most recent video or maybe the second most, but it was definitely very recent, so that's cool. You can go to see about him. And Ochiko, the back left Ochiko, was also recent enough to be in a video. I think she was one of the first videos that I did on the channel for figures, but she was there. The other three are not. The other three are not scales. The Todoroki and the back left Ochiko are scales, and the other three are not. The RWBY I actually almost got from the eBay guy, if it wasn't obvious. The last shelf, none of that came from the eBay guy. The RWBY was sold by the eBay guy at some point, but unfortunately I was outbid, so I didn't manage to get it from the eBay guy. I had to get it somewhere else, and so it was a little bit more expensive. I think it would have been about £20 if I'd got it from him, but oh well, I bought it somewhere else instead. As for the others, I guess we'll go through the prices since I was talking about them. So the RWBY ended up being $50, as you can see, much more expensive than the $20 I would have got if it was the eBay guy. Worth mentioning though that the eBay guy does not sell figures with boxes, so being as how I didn't buy it from the eBay guy, she did at least come with a box this time, so that's nice. But I'm not paying over double the price for a box, and I would much rather have got it from the eBay guy. The Yang was $35, which is pretty reasonable for a pop-up parade. The pop-up parade Ochiko in the back right was £45, and the Ochiko in the back left, who, like I said, is a scale, she's an 8th scale, was only $66, which is very cheap for a scale figure, really. She also has her bonus faceplate sitting there in front of her, which is just, well, it's not really a faceplate, but it's like a helmet thing. It comes with extra hair or whatever. And then the Todoroki cost $51. He is also an 8th scale, so again, a really good price for a scale figure. In fact, if you think about it, the RWBY and the Todoroki were only £1 different, which is pretty insane, really. I'm actually surprised at that myself. I didn't remember that I got them for such good prices, but yeah, that's really cool. So now I have to think about something interesting to say for these figures, don't I? There isn't really much to it. I said all the interesting things on the last shelf. I guess what I'll tell you is the way they're put together, which is kind of interesting on these ones, with two of them in particular. The Todoroki, the little fire on him, over here, this little fire, haven't done hand on camera for a good 10 minutes there. Yeah, his fire fits onto his hand really nicely. I'm not going to be forgetting that. If you want to see how I put it on, like I said, he was in a video, and like my reaction then is the same that it is going to be now, which is it was really nice. I was really surprised about how nicely it fit on. It took me a minute to figure out how to put it on, but when I got it, it just works so nicely, and it really does just clip in. There's no actual attaching pieces, but it's just really good. I was really impressed with that once I managed to figure it out. And then we've also got the RWBY, whose her big scythe there fits together kind of interestingly. It has a lot of parts. Oh boy, it has a lot of parts. You pull that apart to like 8 parts or something, I think, which is kind of funny. But yeah, putting that together it's not difficult, but like yeah, it's a thing you have to do, which is not usually the case for prize figures, because of course it is a prize figure, and it's not even a particularly high-profile one, being as how the eBay guy was selling it. So that's cool. Yeah, the RWBY and the Yang there also, I will say, probably the only 2 RWBY figures that I'm going to get. You might be like, but where's your Blake and your Weiss? But honestly, I'm just not a huge fan of the Blake and Weiss figures that exist. I do think it might have even been Pop-Up Parade that came out with a new Yang and a new Blake that looked alright, but I don't know really if I want to get them. I've got other things that I could be buying, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm really planning on getting them. It's kind of cool, I guess, but even then I'd still be missing a Weiss. I'm just not a fan of the Weiss figures that exist, which I guess is kind of sad, because like I would get one if there was a figure that I liked of them, but at the end of the day I buy the figures that I like the look of, you know? And if I'm not a huge fan of those figures, then I'm not going to get them. I'm particularly picky about the faces. This is not something that you'll have noticed because it's entirely subjective, but I'm very picky about the faces that I buy on my figures. I want the faces to look like the characters. And in my opinion, all the figures that I have here, the faces look like the characters. Perhaps with the exception of the Sirius, the Azure and Sirius that we had on the top of this shelf. I feel like her face might be a little bit off, but especially given that she's an 8th scale with a huge, like, battleship thing on her, her face really isn't the concentration of the figure. So I don't know. I don't think it's a major problem. It's also not something I knew until after I bought it. So there you go. I don't think I commented on that on the video where I opened up the Sirius, but yeah, I feel like her face might be a bit off. But other than that, yeah, all the faces of the figures that I have, in my opinion at least, look just fantastic. And so when I see a figure whose face doesn't look fantastic, probably not going to buy it. And I assume that's the reason why I'm not wanting to buy the Weiss and Blake that already exist. To be honest, I can't remember. There's definitely something about them that made me not too enthused, but there you go. We've just got RWBY and Yang for now. It fits anyway, they're sisters. That's the pair. They're good. So yeah, anyway, we'll move on to the next shelf now. So we have here another Sword Art Online shelf. I did promise you another one. If you remember, Sword Art Online shelf was the 3rd shelf of the first e-shelf, and so it is the 3rd shelf of the second one. If I turn the camera around here, you will see the other Sword Art Online films, characters, figures, sitting just off to the left. So there you go. There's the other Sword Art Online ones. Saying that, there's still more to come. Don't you worry about it. They just don't fit in the details. And there's only actually 4 figures in here. It's mostly because the leafer is huge. The leafer is the first quarter scale that we've seen so far. I really don't have many quarter scales. I would love to get more. I only recently brought up the courage to buy one, and I really I love it. Quarter scales are my new favourite thing. So I will get some more at some point. But for now, we've got this leafer here and one more that we'll be talking about later. But she just takes up so much space, even without having a base. She's just huge. And then, of course, the 2 over to the left, if it wasn't obvious, that's a pair figure. Move the camera a little bit, we can see the Sugaha in the back. So that's a Sugaha and a leafer. We haven't seen any leafer figures so far, but immediately on this shelf there's 3 and there's more to come. I have quite a few leafers. So yeah, we've got Sugaha and leafer there together, doing things. Their bases fit together. It's kind of cool. Sugaha there with her little, whatever you call that, practice sword thing. And then, of course, real game leafer with her real sword. It's a really cool figure. I like that. And then finally we've got the Shinon in the back, who's not getting much attention because she's in the back right behind the leafer. She's also just a little prize figure. She came from the eBay guy. we will mention the eBay guy again. Always mention the eBay guy. Yeah, the Shinon came from the eBay guy, as did half of the rest of my figures, as you will have noticed by this point. But yeah, the others are... The leafers on the left are scale, and of course the one in the front, like I said, is a quarter scale. So yeah, she's the prize figure of this shelf. I guess you could say this is the fancy Sword Art Online figures, because the other shelf of Sword Art Online figures was all eBay guy prize figures, basically. So this one is just scale figures, but there was also Shinon. Anyway, yeah, it's very nice. I like the Shinon. The Shinon is probably my favourite non-scale Sword Art Online figure, which is cool. So I guess this is technically the better Sword Art Online shelf, because it's got the scale ones and my favourite non-scale, which is cool. So the Shinon, being an eBay guy figure, cost a measly £9. Then the Leafer, being quite the opposite, a huge quarter scale, cost £253. And then we have the pair, Leafer and Suguha figure, which cost a combined £127. Also, looks like I'm just wrong about them being scale figures. They're not, which is honestly kind of weird to me. I thought they were, but hey, whatever, it's fine. They are still very nice figures, and to be honest, they might as well be scale figures. They are high enough quality. I would say potentially my highest quality non-scale figures, besides perhaps the Mia, who, like, I can't ever say the Mia isn't my best one, otherwise the money that I spent on it is not worth. But yeah, those two there, I would say, besides that, gotta be my highest quality non-scale figures, because that's really nice. That's really good. Like, not just in the details, but just generally, like, the quality of the figures. I don't know what I can say. Like, the painting looks good, the detail looks good, like, the poses look good. It looks great. It looks like a scale figure. That's the point. It really does. So I'm very surprised, actually, that they're not. But hey, whatever. There you go. Once again, having to hold the camera for this bottom shelf, we have the stuff at the bottom. Now, if you recall, again, I keep my best stuff at the top and the worst stuff at the bottom. So your first thought should be, why the hell is that huge and cool looking Gojo with the epic background that you said you really like epic backgrounds doing at the bottom? Now I'll tell you why. Almost as if I said all that just to explain. The Gojo is down here because he is so heavy I don't want to put him on glass. You notice the bottom of these Detolfs, that's not glass. So he can quite happily go down here and not be under any danger of smashing stuff. I would be scared if here I put him further up, while I trust that the glass will hold, and much of the glass has lots of heavy things on it. The Gojo is insane. Also, that huge thing, that's just one piece. What, one piece? Yeah, it's just one thing. It's huge, and it's so heavy, it's ridiculous. So yeah, that's why he's down here. And then, of course, Nanami joins him just because Jujutsu Kaisen. So we've got the Nanami, although Nanami is a pretty simple figure. He is technically doing a pose. He's got his little thing held out behind him there, but he is just kind of standing there. So there you go. Then, besides that, we've got Mako in the back, another pop-up parade. Kind of hard to see because of the lighting, but trust me, that base is a hexagon. It's a yellow one. And then we have the Now and the Yusa, who, as you can tell, go together. These are the only two Charlotte figures that exist. And of course, I have both of them because Charlotte's my favourite anime. They are prize figures, and their costs are ridiculous. The Yusa is a prize figure that costs a normal amount. We'll get to the exact costs later, but it's something like £20. And then the Now cost like 100. It's a prize figure. Costs more than half of the scale figures that we've been talking about today. Well, not half of them, but a couple of them. The only difference really between these two is the fact that Now has her little camera there, which does come off. That is separate. So that's cool. We like the little camera. But yeah, I don't really get that. Anyway, Gojo is very cool. Also, that Gojo is huge. You can fit, random fact I know, but you can fit a litre water bottle in between him and the huge thing. Like, it fits. He's that big. He is probably my largest figure. I mean, aside from the fact that, like, you know, quarter scale. but like including the base, the background, you know, I think he is my largest figure, which is very cool, and I do really like him. I have said many times before about Shibuya Scramble, how Shibuya Scramble always makes my favourite figures because they look so detailed and cool. You have the Leafer there, who is a Shibuya Scramble, and one of the only Shibuya Scrambles that I own. I only got them recently, but this Gojo, I would say, is on Shibuya Scramble level. It looks outstanding. But being as how it's not Shibuya Scramble, it doesn't have Shibuya Scramble prices, which is amazing. I don't know why it's not more expensive, to be honest. But yeah, it's just a great figure, and this one can be added to the list of my favourite figures. Despite being all the way down here at the bottom, it really is just because he's so heavy, and he deserves to be at the top. I could put him all the way at the top, but that's where the Azure Lane figures are going, and honestly they won't fit anywhere else. So he's down here, and he will have to cope. But it really is just a great figure. I'm a huge fan of this. I also believe he comes with a spare head, so you can get him with his blindfold off, but I like it with the blindfold on. I think it's cool. So there you go. I've just used that one. Now it's time for guessing which one came from the eBay guy. Unfortunately, I think this time it's quite obvious. It was Nanami. Nanami came from the eBay guy. Once again, the cheap praise figures coming from the eBay guy. Despite the fact, mind you, that the eBay guy stopped selling figures almost 2 years ago now, probably. I just bought that many figures from him in the time that he operated, at least in UK. He still sells them in America, but once COVID hit, he couldn't sell them in UK anymore. So, yeah, I bought a lot of figures from that guy when I started, and you can see that, yeah, okay, now maybe only half my figures came from the eBay guy. In fact, maybe not even that. But back when I started collecting, oh, it was like 80% of my figures came from that guy. It really was. Because all the figures that didn't come from him, I bought more recently than that. Anyway, I think it's prices time, so let's do prices. So we have, starting with the Gojo, £142, which, like I said, that's just, it's such an outstanding price, considering how big it is. He's a 7th scale, and he just has the cool background. Honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if he cost double that. And I probably wouldn't have bought him, to be fair, if he did. But, like, I wouldn't have been surprised. And yet, it cost me only 140, which is, like, a pretty average price for a scale figure. And yet, he's just insane. It's outstanding. Then we have the Nanami, being a stereotypical eBay guy figure, costing me £7. The Mako, being a stereotypical pop-up parade and costing me £35. The Yusa, as promised, £26. That's around 20, a reasonable price for a prize figure. And then finally here we have the Now, also as promised, costing £85 and being completely unreasonable for a prize figure. So, lastly, we have the figures that are just kind of lying around because they don't fit in the Detolf. So these are all recent figures that I got, because naturally, back when I had space in the Detolfs, I would put the figures in the Detolfs. Whereas now I don't have space in the Detolfs, and so any new figures that I get just are kind of lying around. So we have, from left to right, I mean, you probably know the character names really, but I'll say them anyway. We have Raftalia, Ram, Alice, and then moving over a bit, Neptune and Hollow. That's these ones sitting here. I also have a little Now poster back there. It's a metal poster, which is really cool. It's not actually put up and it's still in the cellophane because they use magnets to put them up. And I'm going to be moving house in a couple months and I don't want to have to waste the magnet. So the Now has not been put up properly, but she is there. Of course, being as how there aren't really figures of Now, had to get posters instead. But yeah, here we go. These are all scale figures, because the other thing is, more recently I've been buying more fancy figures, and so while back when I started figure collecting, everything cost me £8 and came from the eBay guy, but now, you know, everything costs a lot more than that, and yeah, it's all scale figures, basically. That being said, these are some fantastic figures. I love these figures. Turns out when you buy better figures, they're better. So, while I can't realistically say that all of these are like one of my favourite figures, because that would be unfair, It really would be unfair. It would devalue my favourite figures by just including everything. But I will absolutely say that those three on the end, the Alice, the Neptune, and the Hollow, are undoubtedly my favourite figures. Some of. And the Ram, honestly, isn't far off. The Raftalia, not quite as good, in my opinion. She's still a wonderful figure. I love the Raftalia, you know, but she's like pretty average for a scale figure, in my opinion. Whereas the other ones there are just fantastic. You know that I'm biased towards quarter scales now, so that's why the Hollow is so good, in my opinion, because she's a quarter scale, and I love quarter scales. And if you saw the video where I opened up the Neptune, unending praise for that, to be honest. It's just a fantastic figure. I love it. Then the Alice, I mean, it's a Shibuya Scramble, so there you go. Shibuya Scrambles are great. And the Ram, while I wouldn't say it's as good as the Gojo, it does come under the class of why isn't this more expensive? Because it is a reasonably standard price for a scale figure, but it is approaching Shibuya Scramble quality, and that's just outstanding. So, love that. These are all fantastic figures. The Neptune there is probably the most complicated figure that I own. I said before about how difficult it was to put together RWBY's Scythe. Well, it wasn't really difficult, it was just there were a lot of parts. But Neptune takes the cake on that one. There's a lot of parts. It was actually hard to put her together. I really had to figure it out, and so much so that I did it wrong, which is fantastic. But anyway, yeah. And then, aside from that, these don't have too many parts. I also put the Ram together wrong, although I was just in the wrong order. She looks fine. The little things at her feet, I was meant to put them in first. I put them in afterwards. And then you've got here the Alice with her little feathers, which just kind of are here. So that's cool. Yeah. Not much to say about them, aside from the fact that they're just great figures. They're some of my favourite figures. Like I've said, I guess we'll go over prices, but watch out because these ones are going to be the expensive ones. So the Raftalia costs £87. The Ram cost £136. The Alice cost £253. The Neptune cost £166. And the Hollow cost £187. So yeah, this really is a repeat of that second Detolf top shelf thing, where it's all the expensive ones. Like I said, more recently I've been buying more expensive figures. I guess that's kind of just how it goes because I get more serious about figure collecting and I want to put more into it. I don't think that's really going to change. I think if you get into figure collecting, or you have already, you'll probably find the same thing. Although, feel free to tell me if not, because I'm sure it's not the same for everyone. Like I said earlier near the start of the video, when I first started figure collecting, my idea was just to buy that one REM. And if you remember, that REM cost me £20, I think so. And it was just going to be that. And I won't tell you the total right now, because we're about to add another couple small things onto it. Although saying that, you probably can see it in the title of the video anyway. I don't see why I wouldn't put it there. But yeah, it's a lot more than £20, isn't it? So, yeah. But yeah, they're really good figures. You get what you pay for, right? And if you pay for a better figure, you're going to get a better figure. At least that's most of the time. I mean, admittedly, while I do love my Mia figure, I don't think she's my best figure. But had to get it. I had to get it. And of course, you have to consider as well that these figures don't lose value, at least not quickly. In fact, a lot of them go up in value. So take solace in the knowledge that you can always sell them and get your money back if you really want. Maybe even make a profit. There's definitely people out there that make profits buying and reselling figures. It's definitely a thing. So anyway, we're not here to just talk about money. We're here to talk about figures. What do I think of these figures? I already said that they're some of the best figures ever. I really feel like I should say something more interesting about them than that. There's not a huge amount to say. Most of what I can say is going to be in most recent videos anyway, because these are all figures that I opened up during a video. so I could tell you about Ram's scratches and how they look really cool, and how it's some good detail, how Hollow isn't actually not safe for work, even if she does look like it, and all the rest of it. But yeah, would recommend having a look at the videos where I opened up those figures, because it's all in there anyway. I think what we're going to do, though, is we're going to move on to the last couple of figures, because there are still a couple, aside from the fact that we just went through the ones that are sitting around on the shelf. There is still a couple more. And there we go, we have two Leafas sitting on a Toblerone box, because I think it's funny. They are the guardians of the Toblerone. It fits because they have yellow hair, as that's the same colour of the Toblerone. Yeah, I did promise you guys some more Leafa figures, because of course earlier we had the pair figure of Leafa and Suguha, and we had the quarter scale. Now we've got some smaller stuff. These are just two little Leafas, two prize figures. They are both eBay guy figures, and therefore I've had them both for a good while. Back when I first got them, I didn't have the Detolfs, and so I just put them on my desk, and I put them on top of this Toblerone box, and they have been there ever since. It is a wonderful stand for them, given that they don't have one base, I should say. And yeah, they're great figures. I'll get them a little bit closer, since we have the luxury. I really didn't want to get out the figures in the cases, because that would require, well, getting them out of the cases. That's the issue, really. Faffing about. But these two are out already, so I might as well get them out and show you. Being little prize figures that came from the eBay guy, they are as high quality as ever. Leafa's head does tend to pop off. You pick her up by the head. I might have to actually pull a little bit. Yeah, I actually have to pull a little bit. There you go. But her head comes off too easily, that's the thing. She has, in the past, just been picked up from being down here. Someone picks her up and her head just comes off, which is kind of funny. This is what happens when you buy cheap figures. It's actually the same, interestingly enough, with this Rem. You can see here, Rem with the hat, her leg comes off. So there you go. But anyway, it's a good Leafa. We like this Leafa. She's a little bit dusty, fortunately, which is why I've now taken her away. I'm dusting her a little bit. Because this is what happens when you don't put figures in a case. They get a bit dusty, which is sad. If I had space in the case, I might put them in there. But one, I don't have space in the case. And two, I like having a couple of figures on my desk anyway. And if I'm going to get a figure dusty, it might as well be a cheap prize figure. And that's what these are. They are cheap prize figures. Let's get the other one as well. I'll show you her up close too. I will give her a quick dust as well. I do dust them periodically. I mean, I say dust them. I'm not really dusting them. Just wiping the dust away with my hands. Which isn't really dusting them. Do a better job than me. If you get figures, do a better job than this, because this is not a good job. It's just, as I will shortly reveal, these figures didn't cost me too much, and if they get some dust stuck to them or whatever, it is not the end of the world. It's really not. So this is fine. Anyway, here you go. Here is Maid Leafa. I'm not a huge fan of the maid outfits. You may have noticed that aside from the fact that I have like 8 Rems, only one of them is wearing a maid outfit. And I believe she's the only maid outfit character I have here. Oh, no, not true. My Ram that we just showed, the one with the scratches and all, she's also wearing a maid outfit. And then also, actually so is Sirius. I guess, you know, when all of your favourite characters wear maid outfits, then you end up getting figures with maid outfits. But oh well. Anyway, yeah, this is just a maid outfit Leafa. It's a fine figure. I do think that the maid outfit is not the best thing ever, but yeah, it's fine. We like the Leafa. These are both good Leafas. They are the guardians of the Toblerone box. So let's move it back around again. They watch me while I'm doing my work, or otherwise known as my watching YouTube. We get a bit of Inception here. There's the computer. And then we have Platelet. Platelet is here. I'll move the camera down a bit, shall I? Platelet is the one who really watches me doing stuff. She's here right in front of my keyboard. She is another cheap figure. She also came from the eBay guy. So there you go. All the eBay guy figures. And she's good. We like Platelet. Her little thing here comes off. And I am capable of fiddling with it, although I try not to. There are better things to fiddle with. But yes, she is also here. She also gets a little dust on top of her hat periodically. Although being as she is right in front of me, as opposed to these two, who are kind of off to the side, she does get a little bit more dusting than them, I would say. But yeah, there you go. Little platelet. Naturally, when I watch Cells at Work, I have to turn around like this so she can also see the computer. She goes, look, platelet. It's you on the screen. There you are. Not now though, platelet. I'm sorry. Cells at Work another time. I mean, I've seen all the seasons now. I don't need to watch it again. But anyway, there's those three. Just three little prize figures from the eBay guy. We'll add on their prices to the total. So for the platelet, we have £10. For the leafer on the left there, we have £7. And for the maid leafer on the right, we have £10. So as you can see, some pretty stereotypical eBay guy figures. Other than that, that is actually all of them. There are not any more figures. The only other thing I can show you really is my wall scroll, which I didn't intend to buy. Not a huge fan of wall scrolls. They're perfectly acceptable, but I collect figures, not wall scrolls, you know? But yeah, you will have probably noticed this, as we were showing the figures earlier. There is indeed a wall scroll up here, and as I attempt to move up the camera, you will see, if you hadn't already somehow, it is a Sword Art Online wall scroll. As you know, I have quite a lot of Sword Art Online figures, and so it makes sense that I have a Sword Art Online wall scroll. I would not consider myself a huge Sword Art Online fan. You don't need to cringe at me, because actually the anime, it is pretty mid, not gonna lie. I would say that Sword Art Online is the anime baseline, is the very definition of average. If an anime is worse than Sword Art Online, it is bad. And if an anime is better than Sword Art Online, it's good. That's Sword Art Online for you. It's a fine anime by definition. But like I said earlier, when a series is that popular, it gets a lot of really nice merch. And so regardless of how much I like Sword Art Online, there's just so many great figures for Sword Art Online, including a bunch of cheap ones. So I own them. And then yeah, we got this wall scroll. I got this for free. It came with some of the figures that I bought, which is nice. So I have it. It's there. It's got Asuna and it's got Alice, and they are cooking something. Chocolate cake, maybe. I don't know. And then off to the left we have Steve. This is Steve. This is the original Steve right here. This is Channel Law. That's the original Steve. It kind of looks like Sonic. Yep, that's all I can say. It kind of looks like Sonic. I did not draw this. I can't draw. One of my friends from secondary school drew this. So that will have been almost 10 years ago now. And when I first came to uni, it was the only thing I could put up on the walls. So I brought it, and I put it up on the walls. And now, of course, I have a Sword Art Online poster that I can put up on the walls as well. So I did. But anyway, that's really everything. I even showed you the Now poster. There's not much else to show. Here, look, I'll show you my Menhera. There are no Menhera figures. But oh boy, I will try my best. I will try my best. So we do have Menhera keychain. She is on my keys. And she is Menhera keychain. And she is wonderful. If there is a Menhera figure, I would buy it. But there isn't. I've looked. Oh boy, I have looked. There, I'll tell you, right? I found a Menhera figure. There's a design for one out there. Someone made one. They modelled it, right? But the model files aren't there. It's just print screens of the model. So I can't even, like, rent a 3D printer and make it myself. It's actually not possible. I cannot do it. The files aren't there. And you can't even tell me, oh, why don't you message the guy that made it and ask for the files? I also can't do that. He's Chinese, and it was posted by the company that he made it with, not by him. I really can't do anything about this. There's no Menhera figures out there. Hey, like, if you model anime figures, hit me up. I would commission a Menhera figure. I would be so down. Anyway, yeah, that's everything. There's nothing else to show you. There's nothing anime related here. I can't even show you my manga collection. I don't have one. I don't have any manga. They're just figures. So there you go. The last thing I guess to talk about is the grand reveal of how much money it cost me to buy all of these figures. Like I keep saying, you guys have probably known the whole time because I'm gonna put it in the YouTube title. Let's be realistic. But I can now see the number. It's there on my calculator. Look at this on the screen where I know you can't see it because it's pure white. Oh no, you can if I zoom in. Look at that. You couldn't see it when it was back here. The number didn't show up, but now it does. Yeah, it's $4,000, which is, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I'm just looking over to this one shelf here. Sorry about moving the camera a bunch. This one shelf here is a quarter of it. I have 8 shelves. In fact, if you include the ones on the top of the cases up here, 10 shelves. If you include these ones over here and these ones over here, that's like 12 shelves. And this one is a quarter of it. No. And to be honest, these ones over here, another quarter. It's ridiculous. Bro, in fact, you know what? That mirror right there, just that mirror, that's an 1/8. That's an 1/8 of my collection. But also, it's a lot of money. So there you go. This is what it looks like if you spend $4,000 on anime figures. It depends though, to be honest. Like, you could quite easily spend $4,000 on anime figures and buy a single figure if you bought something insanely rare. If you go into Gundams, maybe you could spend $4,000 on a shelf of anime figures very easily because you could just buy resins. That'll sort you out there. But equally, if you're buying random figures off eBay that are prize figures and cost £7, you could buy literally hundreds of figures for $4,000. So yeah, it really depends what you buy. But this is what my $4,000 looks like. This is also not including the cost of the detolfs. If you're wondering, detolfs cost like £80 each. So there you go. That should be added on as well, I suppose. And the LEDs as well probably cost £10, maybe 20, like whatever. So yeah, there you go. And that's how much it cost. Now I know, and now you know. You knew already. You knew before I did. You insane people! How did you've been stalking me? Anyway, I don't really have much else to say about the figures. They're very cool. I would not recommend getting into anime figure collecting because what happens is you spend $4,000 on anime figures, but also they're so nice. They're so good. Like, look, if I want, I can open up this case and I can just like I could pat Uzaki on the head. You know, I could just get her out and I could just look. It's Uzaki. She's there in front. Uzaki was just an example. She's in the middle of the camera right now. But like, I could do that. Could you do that? I don't think you could do that. Maybe you don't want to do that, but I like the fact that it isn't an option for me. And also, they're just really nice figures, bro. It's just so good. I love my figures. I spend a lot of time and apparently money collecting them. I love it. It's just great. And this is why I also make videos about them, because like, it turns out when you put that much time into it is basically a hobby. I feel it's kind of sketchy calling it a hobby, because like, other people have actual respectable hobbies. You play like a musical instrument or something, putting aside from the fact that I play musical instruments as well. Like, you play a musical instrument, you gotta you put effort into that, you learn it, you get good at it. You know, you can now do something, it's a skill. Collecting anime figures, it's the it's the lazy person's hobby. It's like, yeah, I can't be bothered to learn a musical instrument or get good at drawing art. I'm just gonna pay for my hobby instead. Which is dumb as shit. It's just like, oh dear. But I do love it. I love collecting anime figures, and it won't stop anytime soon. I said before that I wasn't planning on getting any more figures until after I'd moved house. That is not true. I got another one. I can't stop myself. It should be here in a couple of weeks. So you can look forward to that. In a couple of weeks there will be another figure, and then I'll stop. We'll see what happens. Like, realistically, will I be able to contain myself? We're not sure. We'll see, but there shouldn't be too many more, at least not until like summer. Maybe in summer I'll buy some more. But yeah, I want to buy more figures. I love just having figures. Figures are just so good. They're just the best thing ever. Okay. I really am waffling at this point, so I should probably shut up. If you collect figures, you can send me pictures of your figure collection on Discord, link in description, and I'll have a look at them and we can talk about figures. It's great. I love talking about figures. I just spent 2 hours talking about figures. Like, I don't know how long this video is. I will cut it down a lot. Honestly, I would hope to get it under an hour, but I'll tell you now, it took 2 hours to record, so there you go. But hopefully you enjoyed. I mean, if you watched the video all the way through, I sure expect you probably enjoyed. I love talking about figures. If you have any questions about any of the figures, hey, ask me some questions about the figures. If you want better pictures of the figures as well, most of them I actually have professional pictures of, because one of my housemates last year got into photography and then just took pictures of all the figures, and honestly, they look really fucking professional. They're great pictures. Anything recent, I don't have pictures of, unfortunately. Anything that I got in the last, like, 6 months, I don't have pictures of. But before that, I actually do have professional pictures of every figure. So if you do want to see a figure, you know, up close, something like that, let me know. I will send you some pictures. They're great figures. I love the figures. Anyway, to stop myself from waffling any further, I will end this video here. I really honestly wish I had said more about the figures. Despite the fact that this video is really long, I feel like I said more about the DVDs than I did about the figures, which is kind of sad. I guess it's more just because there were so many DVDs. But yeah, figures, huh? I don't really know what my plan was with this video. I wanted to show you guys what figures I had. I said at the start, you know, show you guys what figures I have, tell you what I think about them. But turns out, I think they're great. So, it's not much to say. Yeah, they're great, and I love them, and I would love to talk about them more, but I don't want the video to be too long, and also, there is a limited amount that I can say just by myself. This is why you guys need to ask me questions about them, and then I can tell you about the figures. But right now, I'm just kind of sitting here and being like, damn, these figures are just so good. Like, you know, Kizana's detail right there. Her little her belt thing going, and like the little the hair detail and the gradient on her bow, and you know, oh, Suzuha, you know, that bike works, and like, damn. But actually, yeah, I should shut up. So I'm gonna end this video here, and next time we do a collection video, it's probably going to be on Pokemon cards, because I've been promising that one for a while as well. I will get it done at some point, but also I should put out more gaming videos. I've only been doing like Bloons Tower Defense and only like once every few days, and it's not good enough, so I'll try to do more. If you guys do want that, then have fun with that, but also, yeah, bye!